All right, it's what everybody is talking about right now. The 49ers quarterback situation. Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold. Everybody seems to have their own order for these guys. What we do know is that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have Brock Purdy at number one. We don't know where Trey Lance and Sam Darnold are in the pecking order. Is it two? Is it number three? Who is where? And also, we do know that people online are just absolutely going apeshit over all of this without, a lot of these discussions are coming without any facts whatsoever. It's a lot of feelings over facts. So let's talk about the truth of the 49ers quarterback situation today, the facts of the situation. Maybe I should, even before I get to point number one, which is on your screen, maybe I should amend that. Let's go the facts of the 49ers quarterback situation, because the truth is going to be determined by what happens on the field, both this offseason and then moving into the 2023 season. But the facts of the QB situation, well, that is something that we have data for. That's something that we can look at objectively, and we can clear some of the noise that is taking over these YouTube comment sections. Again, a lot of people have no evidence to suggest that Trey Lance is better than Brock Purdy or even Sam Darnold. Yet they are willing to die on that Lance hill. They're willing to just get up on Twitter and start banging their chest and start talking about Trey Lance. And that doesn't further any discussions. There are people who love Brock Purdy and think that he's automatically the next Joe Montana. Well, we have to pump the brakes a little bit on that front. And a lot of people are immediately discounting Sam Darnold as if what he did in New York in 2018, 2019, even what he did with Carolina through 2020 and 2021, as if that's going to be definitively illustrative of what he's going to be in 2023. And to be honest, none of those takes are true. The truth can always be found somewhere on a gradient in between the extremes. And we can look at the facts of the quarterback situation of the 49ers right now. So I have a few points and I have some numbers to show you, because a lot of this stuff to me, I think is going to blow people's minds because they're so attached to the feelings narratives online. They don't actually realize where some of the performance has been. And I've got some charts. I've got some color-coded stuff ready to go. Number one, Brock Purdy has unquestionably delivered the best football out of all the 49ers quarterbacks, and he has done it for the longest period of time at the NFL level. So, when you look at Purdy and when you look at the track record of Trey Lance and you look at the track record of Sam Darnold, you see a whole lot of good efficiency from Brock Purdy and a whole lot of bad from Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. More bad for Darnold than for Lance. I'm going to pop open the State of the 49ers quarterback piece. I thought I had this order open a little bit earlier, but here we go. Pop it open on the screen. Here we go. And we're going to take a look at our big chart right there. Pop this open a little bit bigger so that everybody can zoom in, see the years as you see fit. But this is 49ers quarterbacks under Kyle Shanahan over the course of the past 6 seasons now at this point. Blue is going to be good. Red is bad. And it goes, the top is the most recent season. The bottom is 2017. Jimmy Garoppolo accounts for a lot of the blue on this chart. In fact, he was essentially the only one accounting for consistent blue on the chart up until 2021, when Trey Lance did some good stuff, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But here in 2022, Brock Purdy showed up fresh out of bed as a rookie, same adjusted net yards per attempt, which is going to factor in touchdowns and interceptions, as Jimmy Garoppolo. You can see the blue up here in the upper left. DVOA for Jimmy Garoppolo was number one in NFL. Purdy wasn't all that far behind him. He was also a top 5 DVOA. That's defense adjusted value over average, is going to take into account strength of opposing defenses. EPA per game, that's expected points added per game. Purdy was better than Garoppolo. Again, both of them in a dark shade of blue. Both of them were really impressive. Success rate, SR, is the percentage of plays that yield a positive EPA. Garoppolo a little bit more consistent than Purdy, 51% to 50. And then turnover EPA per game, who's further in the negative? That's worse. Jimmy Garoppolo, a little further in the negative, but still good performance overall in turnover EPA per game versus Brock Purdy. Both of them were good. CPOE is completion percentage over expectation. Both quarterbacks slightly below average. It's mainly because Kyle Shanahan set up a lot for them, so they weren't really attempting passes far enough downfield consistently enough to have a good CPOE. But as you can see, Trey Lance, excellent across the Brock Purdy, excellent across the board. Jimmy Garoppolo, excellent across the board. Then you look at Trey Lance's 2022 numbers. Yes, the sample size is small. I get it, but it's terrible across most of the board. He avoided turnovers okay. That number's in the blue, but adjusted net yards per attempt, really bad. DVOA, really bad. EPA, success rate. Completion percentage over expectation, horrific, negative 17.3%. Now, a lot of it was because Trey Lance played most of his time here in 2022 in a monsoon. And how do we know that? Well, in 2021, Trey Lance was a little bit better. And that's where we bring Trey Lance into this equation. Trey Lance, this is point number 2, has shown glimpses of a high ceiling, but there's been a very low floor with him. And this is the case even in 2021 as a rookie, where the adjusted net yards per attempt are through the roof. Some of the big plays accounted for that. Still remember that game against Houston where Trey Lance went off in the second half. DVOA also good. Remember, Arizona had a decent defense last year, or 2 seasons ago, I should say now. So I think that boosted Trey Lance's score in DVOA since his defense adjusted. But the EPA per game, still below average. The success rate, terrible, 40%. And the completion percentage over expectation, not good at all. Better than it was in the monsoon in 2022, but still below average. So what we see here is a mix of colors for Trey Lance in 2021. And that shows us that, yes, this guy does have a high ceiling. He's got the mobility. He's got a cannon for an arm, but he's also got a low floor. He's got an elongated release. He's not accurate. The mechanics are inconsistent. Still has a lot of development to go, a lot of reps needed for Trey Lance. So that's truth number 2. Remember, truth number 1 is Brock Purdy's been the best about all these guys. Truth number 2 is Trey Lance has shown glimpses of a high ceiling, but a low floor. Truth number 3 relates to Sam Darnold. And you just had to take my word for number 1 because Darnold isn't on the 49ers chart. But we could look at Darnold's numbers now. This is Darnold through the years. Early on, he was with the Jets. Then he was traded to Carolina. And 2022, when you see this eye-opening turnaround, it moves from dark red to dark blue really quick. All of a sudden, Sam Darnold turned it around. Now, his numbers in 2022, if you want to compare them to the Purdy numbers, look at the 2022 numbers. You've got, 7.1 adjusted net yards per attempt, 23.2% DVOA. Both really good. Neither of those quite as good as Brock Purdy. Actually, DVOA is better than Purdy's, but the adjusted net yards per attempt is worse for Sam Darnold. The turnover EPA per game is worse. The success rate, where's he at with success rate? We don't have success rate in this chart. I'm going to look up Sam Darnold's success rate. That's actually going to be interesting to chart. But as you can see, he turns everything around from 2021 and 2018 to 2021, really. And it's a great 2022 season. So we have 3 truths here. 1 is that Purdy has delivered the best football out of all 3 of these guys for the longest period of time. 2, that Trey Lance has been up and down, up and down. And 3, we cannot ignore Sam Darnold's 2022 turnaround. It was indeed eye-popping. All right, so what do we make out of this information? Because to me, this is fascinating. 1, you have this. Trey Lance is no longer on scholarship. And last year he was on scholarship, and I'm borrowing this term from Tim Kawakami. He used it in a good piece the other day on The Athletic. Last year, Trey Lance did not have to win a quarterback competition. He didn't. Jimmy Garoppolo was off on the side field. He wasn't competing. It was gifted to Trey Lance. I get why the 49ers gifted it to Trey Lance, because they spent all this capital to trade up to number 3, and they wanted to see what they had. They were okay with some struggles from Trey. In fact, I think the 49ers calculus for how this development was going to work was they would have the defense leading the way. Trey Lance would get his reps. He'd get better over the course of the season. And then he'd be able to lead the team into the playoffs as a different quarterback than he was early on. Obviously, that plan never came to fruition. because Trey Lance got hurt. Not his fault that he got hurt, but he got hurt. Out the whole season. A lot happened while Trey Lance was out. Jimmy Garoppolo balled out. Then Brock Purdy balled out. And Brock Purdy, that's a bigger problem to Trey Lance. Brock Purdy balling out than Jimmy Garoppolo balling out. Because Jimmy, good play was going to lead him elsewhere for big money. That's what happened. He signed for a lot of money with the Raiders. But good play for Brock Purdy, well, that was going to make him the 49ers' preferred option. And that's exactly what happened. Purdy's a heck of a lot cheaper than everybody else, including Trey Lance, as he was the final pick of that draft. And as you can see right here, Brock Purdy was significantly, and we're talking significantly more efficient than Trey Lance. You see the dark red for Lance. I get it, monsoon game, only one game, but Purdy over 8 games did a whole bunch of impressive stuff that was even more impressive than what Lance did in 2021. And I thought Lance wasn't bad in 21, especially in the second half of the game against the Texans. Anyway, since so much changed, since Purdy entered the mix, since it's a year later on Lance's rookie deal, and since the 49ers are still contending, still in win now mode, strengthening their roster, they've now gone all in. They've got Javon Hargrave in tow. They can't afford to waste time developing Trey Lance. So, by extension, the truth of the matter now is that Trey Lance is no longer on scholarship. Last year, they had to play Trey Lance early. He had to win the competition, so there was no competition. This year, there is a competition. And this year, Trey Lance is not going to be gifted anything. He can still win it. He still has shown those glimpses of the very high ceiling to go with a very low floor, but he's got to make that high ceiling happen more often than the floor occurs. And the key behind that for Trey Lance is to even out the mechanics. And really the only way to even out the mechanics is to get reps. Only way to get reps is to earn them this offseason, which by the process of deduction means that Trey Lance has a massive offseason in front of him. Purdy is the de facto leader in the clubhouse, but Purdy also has a torn up elbow. With that torn up elbow, Trey Lance and Sam Darnold both have opportunities. Now, while Lance is no longer on scholarship, neither is Sam Darnold, but I should, let me flip this around right here because people are thinking of this the other way, and I wrote this incorrectly. Lance doesn't earn preferential treatment over Darnold, period. Beware of sunk cost fallacy. I talked about this yesterday. A lot of people think that just because Trey Lance is Trey Lance and the 49ers invested a lot in him a couple of years ago, that he somehow should be ahead of the pecking order, ahead of Sam Darnold in the pecking order, just because. He is not entitled to that, and the 49ers aren't playing that game. Last year, I get it. He was entitled to be on top of the pecking order, maybe not fairly, but Trey Lance had that position because of the draft capital the 49ers invested in him. But the situation has changed now. The 49ers have Brock Purdy on a rookie deal, and they have Sam Darnold on an affordable deal with incentive money that's not likely to be earned. And they won't mind one bit if Sam Darnold earns that incentive money if he is the best quarterback on the roster. And here's one thing. Speaking of preferential treatment, some people think Lance should get it because he's a number 3 overall pick. Well, so is Sam Darnold. There's literally no difference between these two guys now. Lance on one side, Darnold on the other. They're going to go at it all off season. They're going to each one is going to try to impress and blow away the 49ers coaching staff to earn the right at some playing time, perhaps before Brock Purdy returns. But Brock Purdy's situation is tenuous in its own right because he's recovering from that injury and the sample size wasn't huge with him. So whoever wins this battle between Sam Darnold and Trey Lance can theoretically move on to the next round to face Brock Purdy when Brock Purdy is back from his injury. And it is entirely possible that that quarterback wins the entire tournament. It's all up for grabs for the 49ers. But you cannot give Trey Lance preferential treatment over Sam Darnold because that's what sunk cost fallacy is. I read about sunk cost fallacy yesterday. I gave you the definition, and I'm going to read it again right now because it is a common human mistake in judgment and business decisions that I think people are returning to now. It's a behavioral economics term, the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have invested heavily in it, even when it is clear that abandonment would be more beneficial. So the 49ers, for all intents and purposes, based on everything we know, have abandoned the strategy of babying Trey Lance along just because he was the third pick in the 2021 draft. The Jets and the Panthers, well, they abandoned course with Sam Darnold a long time ago. It is now a free fight between Lance and Sam Darnold, and Lance doesn't get preferential treatment just because he got picked higher. He just doesn't. That would be sunk cost fallacy. That's what the 49ers are trying to avoid. So when you look at this three-way situation, just know the facts of it. Just know the facts of it before getting into heated discussions, before letting this turn emotional, because it's emotional elsewhere on the internet, but we're not going to let it become emotional here. And the facts in this situation are that Brock Purdy has delivered the best football out of all three of these guys, unquestionably. And the longest stretch of it over his 8 games in 2022. You see it at the top of the chart here. Adjusted net yards per attempt, DVOA, defense adjusted value over average, EPA per game, success rate, turnover EPA per game. Purdy was the best. Now, Sam Darnold, well, he hasn't been bad either, but only really recently. Awesome numbers for Sam Darnold to close the 2022 season, especially in relation to a lot of the red that you saw earlier. So there was a turnaround there, and that's part of our main list of points to study in this situation. And then there's Trey Lance. Trey Lance has shown glimpses of a high ceiling, but a very low floor. And if you want to look at Lance, well, we could zoom in maybe a little bit further on this. It's going to be at the top of the screen. Lance, a couple of good clips in 2021. Not a big sample, but a couple, it's typical high floor, low floor, high ceiling stuff. But in 2022, over the monsoon game, it wasn't good for Trey Lance. So with those three truths, we have the setup for the 49ers QB situation in factual terms. And we can deduce that based on the fact that Darnold is coming on strong, that Purdy came on strong last year, Lance is no longer on scholarship. He doesn't have the track record of playing well enough in the NFL, even over a shorter period of time, his fault or not, to be on any sort of scholarship. Nothing is going to be given to Trey Lance. He's going to have to fight and earn it because he doesn't even have preferential treatment over Sam Darnold. The 49ers are not going to subscribe to sunk cost fallacy in this quarterback situation. So what's going to happen? I don't know. First, we have to wait until June to see what Brock Purdy's timeline is going to be. Then we have to actually watch OTAs unfold. What does Sam Darnold look like in the 49er system? Because, we could talk about Darnold right here. Darnold obviously has that remarkable turnaround to his name in 2022. One thing that Carolina started doing this past season, they ran a yak-based offense, yards after the catch. The 49ers and the Panthers finished tied at number 1 and over the course of the whole 22 season in yards after the catch per reception. And that's the Panthers that lost Christian McCaffrey about halfway through to the 49ers. They stayed strong in yak. One of the reasons they stayed strong in yak is because Sam Darnold took over for the final 6 games of the season, and he facilitated the yak at an even more efficient clip than somebody like Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy. In fact, over the final 6 games of the season, the 6.63 yards after catch per reception average that Carolina held for the entirety of this season, their split over the final 6 games was about a yard better, 7.6 yards after the catch per attempt. Sam Darnold gets big time credit for that. He showed true glimpses of a high ceiling in a very, very eye-opening 2022 turnaround. Now, Darnold was drafted 3rd overall back in 2018, so we know the teams have believed in him before. We've seen some of the clips of him flipping his hips after running away from the pass rush to the naked side, firing a pass downfield for a touchdown. That was in garbage time against the 49ers in 2020. Sam Darnold's got some real ability, and the 49ers believe that he was finally put into a situation where it's shown through last year with that focus on the yak-based offense in Carolina. And lo and behold, he's going to have Christian McCaffrey with him in San Francisco. So that kind of eye-opening turnaround, you cannot rule things out for Sam Darnold. Those are the numbers. They really do not lie. They show you that Sam Darnold turned his big time struggles around in 2022. Now the question is, can he perpetuate them with the 49ers moving into 2023? We do know, and this is based on my piece with John Lynch. Let's scroll down and look at some of the Sam Darnold stuff. This is what you should subscribe to so you get in depth into some of the 49ers thought process. Darnold right here. First, the 49ers here. Let's read this one first. First, it's a matter of we agreed the situation they put him in Carolina, the way they were playing him, he kind of broke through a little bit, Lynch said. It had a lot to do with the style. They were running the football. They were doing a lot of play action off the run, a lot of things we like to do. So I already mentioned that. But look at this. He was craving our structure, our stability, the opportunity to play for Brian Griese, the opportunity to play for Kyle. The head coach is in a lot of these QB meetings day in and day out. That was really appealing to Sam. His play and his ability was really appealing to us. We really like our group, and our priority was to find one more, and Sam was the one that we really zeroed in on. The 49ers noticed the turnaround for Sam Darnold, and therefore, he's right in the thick of things. That's the truth behind the 49ers quarterback situation. We've got a lot of hard data to show us that there's reason for the 49ers to like all three of these quarterbacks, but there's probably the most reason to like Brock Purdy right now. But there's also the biggest potential drawback with him coming off of this elbow surgery. We won't know for a couple months how that recovery is going. So they have to arm themselves with option power beyond Brock Purdy, and they've done it with a quarterback like Sam Darnold, who is enjoying a career renaissance right now. And the question is, can Kyle Shanahan perpetuate that renaissance? All while Trey Lance is going for his first truly big splash. And Darnold was picked number 3 overall. So is Trey Lance. They're both physically talented. You let it rip. Just because Trey Lance is no longer in scholarship doesn't mean the 49ers don't believe that he could still deliver good football for them. But the pressure is now on Trey Lance because last year he earned it for free. This year he's going to have to earn it with some cost. This year he's going to have to beat out somebody like Sam Darnold and maybe even turn around and beat out Brock Purdy once he heals down the road. All right, that's the truth of the 49ers quarterback situation. Only the facts. Everybody like the video, sub to the channel. We'll talk to you all very soon. Bye now.